His name was Kyle. Tattooed forearm, smug little smirk, and the kind of cologne you could smell through lies. He wasn't wearing a shirt, just cargo shorts and a beer gut, standing by my patio with my kids' toys scattered behind him like he owned the place. That day the sky didn't look like betrayal. It looked like a lazy Sunday. Birds chirping, sunlight poking through clouds, and my marriage was dying in flip-flops. I didn't plan it. I just came home early from my brother's house, 2 hours south, where I had been crashing after the fights got too regular with Emily. You know when someone stops arguing with you? That silence starts to scream. I felt it in her voice for weeks. I'm fine, was another shovel of dirt. But I wasn't prepared to find him on my lawn. He was holding a beer in one hand and a metal tape measure in the other, just standing there, like it was his damn backyard. He didn't even flinch when he saw me. Just looked over, nodded once, then said the line that would rot in my memory forever. I'm thinking about putting my grill here. My grill. My yard. My life. And this son of a said it like we were buddies planning a barbecue. Then he added, without even blinking, the kids say I cook better than you anyway. I didn't respond. I didn't even feel my feet. My bag dropped from my shoulder without me knowing. My heartbeat slowed, and my fingers started to tingle. But my head? It was empty. No rage. No tears. Just cold, still silence. I pulled out the ice pack I had in my bag. I'd twisted my ankle playing ball with my nephew that morning and held it out to him. You'll need this soon. Silence. Then a punch that said everything I didn't. His head snapped sideways, and his beer flew. He stumbled back into the plastic slide, which groaned like even it knew he didn't belong there. He looked stunned, not because he didn't think he deserved it, but because he didn't think I had it in me. I did. The front door creaked open. Emily stood there in one of my t-shirts, hair messy, phone in hand like she'd been taking selfies or texting him sweet nothings from upstairs. Her face went pale, then red. "What the hell are you doing here?" she snapped, stepping out barefoot. Not a single word about the punch. Not a flicker of guilt. "What am I doing here?" I repeated, still staring at Kyle, who was rubbing his jaw with a shaking hand. "I live here. Or I used to." She crossed her arms, the phone now hidden behind her back, like I wouldn't notice. "You can't just show up unannounced and assault people." That's when I laughed. It wasn't a normal laugh. It was the kind that's empty. Hollow. That kind of sound your body makes when your soul throws its hands up and walks away. Kyle got up slowly, still not saying anything, just looking between me and her like he was calculating if round 2 was coming. Emily didn't look at him. She looked right at me and said, "You're overreacting. He's just a friend." I wanted to scream, to grab something and throw it. Instead, I looked past her into the house I built. The couch where we held our babies. The photo frames on the wall still filled with smiles that were starting to feel like lies. And all I could think was, how many of those memories were real? "Friend," I repeated, then pointed at the yard. "Your friend wants to replace my grill. Did you promise him the rest of the house too? Or just the patio?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Because then, from behind her, came the sound of tiny feet. And then, the voice that nearly broke me. "Uncle Kyle, can we finish the burgers?" "Uncle Kyle." I didn't even look at him. I turned, walked back to my car, and sat inside. I didn't cry. I didn't curse. I just stared ahead, hands on the wheel, breath caught somewhere in my throat. I had questions. Hundreds. But only one that mattered right then. When did I stop being home and start being the stranger in it? I didn't drive off. I sat in that car for maybe an hour, maybe more. Time stretched out and wrapped around me like a straitjacket. I watched them through the windshield like it was some twisted reality show. Emily laughing too loud. Kyle flipping burgers like a proud stepdad in training. My daughter, Ava, sitting on his shoulders like she used to do with me. And you know what I realized? You don't lose someone overnight. It's not a wrecking ball. It's rust. Quiet. Creeping. It eats at the frame until everything collapses and you're the only one still surprised. Emily started changing about 6 months ago. It wasn't obvious at first. Just late replies to my texts. A weird distance in her hugs, like she was pressing her body against me, but not her heart. She started going out with the girls more often. "Book clubs," she said. "Why nights?" Once, I checked her location because I was worried. She was nowhere near the wine bar she said she'd be. When I brought it up, she flipped it on me like I was the villain. "You're tracking me now? God, you're paranoid," she spat, slamming her wine glass down. "This is why we're falling apart. You smother me. Falling apart. Not she was falling apart. Not we were drifting. No, I was the problem. I smothered. I worried too much. I didn't let her breathe. So, I did what any broken man desperate to fix his family would do. I gave her space. I stepped back, not knowing I was handing her the room to cheat. It wasn't just the absences. It was the apathy. I'd bring home dinner, and she'd scroll on her phone the entire time. No thanks, no smiles. Just swipes and blank stares. I'd initiate intimacy, and she'd push me away with fake headaches and fake yawns. And then one night, I remember this like a scar. I came home late from a shift, and there were 2 wine glasses in the sink. Only one was used. Lipstick on both. Red. Emily hadn't worn red in months. I didn't say anything then. Didn't want to believe what I already knew. So I crashed at my brother Zach's house that weekend. Needed time to think. Needed air. And when I came back a day early, looking for some kind of sign that she missed me, I found Kyle, shirtless, with a measuring tape, in my goddamn yard. The thing is, betrayal doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it shows up holding a spatula and wearing your slippers. I finally turned the key in the ignition and drove. Not far, just to a parking lot down the road. Sat there, opened my phone, scrolled through our old pictures. Ava's birth, our wedding, Emily smiling in a white dress, eyes full of promises she'd later break. I opened the security camera app, one I had installed after that night with the wine glasses. And there it was. Days of footage I had never had the guts to look through before. Kyle, multiple times, slipping in through the back door. Once at 11 a.m. when I was at work. Another time past midnight when she told me she was out with Claire. She was a damn symphony of lies. I watched her kiss him on our couch. The one we got after Ava was born. She straddled him like I'd been erased, like I never existed. And suddenly, I didn't feel hollow anymore. I felt rage. Cold, calculated rage. I didn't want to cry. I wanted clarity. This wasn't an affair. This was an invasion. And I was about to take my house back. I didn't go back home that night. I slept in the car. Not because I had nowhere to go. Zach texted me 3 times asking where I was. But I needed to feel the discomfort. The stiff seat. The cold window against my cheek. I needed to sit in the middle of that pain and let it eat through my skin. That's what betrayal does. It doesn't stab. It seeps. By morning, I wasn't calmer. I was clearer. I drove back slowly, like a man walking into a battlefield with nothing left to lose. The sun was coming up, the sky turning orange like nothing had happened. Like the universe didn't care that my wife had turned our house into a goddamn motel. I walked through the front door like I owned it, because I did. She was in the kitchen, pouring cereal for Ava like she hadn't just ripped our life in half. Wearing my hoodie again, looking like domestic bliss. That casual smile when she saw me. That was what nearly made me lose it. "You're back early," she said, spooning cereal like we were about to talk about grocery lists. I said nothing. She took a bite and pointed at the fridge. "We're out of milk." I still said nothing. She finally looked up. "What? You lied to me." She rolled her eyes. "Again with this?" "No, Emily," I said. My voice wasn't raised. That made it worse. "Not again. This time I have footage." Her jaw froze mid-chew. I pulled out my phone, opened the security app, and tossed it on the counter. The screen lit up. There she was, in full HD, straddling Kyle on our couch. She didn't even reach for the phone. She didn't scream or cry or deny. She just sighed, like she was the one tired of me. "Look," she said, dragging her fingers through her hair. "You and I haven't been working for a long time. You could have told me that before bringing another man into my home, into my daughter's life. He's good to her," she snapped. "Better than you've been lately." That hit like a bullet between the ribs. Better than me? The man who worked double shifts to pay for Ava's piano lessons? Who gave up weekends with friends to fix leaking pipes, to cook breakfast, to hold Emily's hand through her anxiety spells? Better how? "Oh," she added like it was an afterthought. "And you have no right to hit him. If you try something again, I'll call the cops." I stepped closer. Not threatening. Just close enough to make sure she saw the disgust in my eyes. "You think I care about cops at this point? You brought a man into my house and let him play father to my child. You want to throw around words like right and wrong now?" That's when she dropped the mask. The fake calm. The subtle lies. "You're just mad you lost," she hissed. "You stopped trying a long time ago, and he makes me feel alive. You think I was going to wait around while you sat on the couch every night, tired and boring?" I stared at her like I was seeing a stranger. Because I was. I turned, walked to the stairs, and grabbed a duffel bag from the hall closet. "You're leaving?" she asked, suddenly defensive. "No," I said. "You are." She laughed, a short, mean laugh. "You can't kick me out. This is my house, too." I looked her in the eye. "No, it was ours. Now it's the scene of a crime." And just like that, I walked out. But I wasn't running away. I was starting a war. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't punch walls or blast angry music. I drove back to Zach's house, parked outside, and stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror until the sun was high and the heat fogged the glass. My face looked older. Tired. Not from age, from betrayal. She said I lost. As if our marriage had been some contest, and Kyle, with his smug grin and backyard dreams, was the prize. No, this wasn't about losing her. It was about reclaiming me. Zach opened the door before I knocked. He didn't ask questions, just stepped aside and said, "You look like hell, bro." I just walked out of it. He offered me coffee. I asked for whiskey. We sat in silence for a while until I finally told him everything. The grill. The footage. Emily's cold-as-ice reaction. The better-than-you jab. And that final blow. "You're just mad you lost." Zach clenched his jaw. "You want me to go over there?" "No," I said. "I want a lawyer." He raised a brow. "That's serious?" I nodded. "It's war now." Because it wasn't just infidelity. It was psychological warfare. She invited another man into our daughter's world and painted me as the villain. If I didn't fight back smart, I'd lose more than a wife. I'd lose my family. I spent the next 3 days in research mode. I called a lawyer, a pit bull of a woman named Sandra Reyes who didn't blink when I told her everything. She said the footage would help. So would text messages if I had any. I did. Screenshots. Deleted messages recovered. The wine glasses. The footage. The timestamps. The whole rotten cake. Sandra said one thing that stuck with me. "She's already ahead in this game, Jason. She's laid groundwork. Probably told friends you were distant, cold, maybe even abusive." Abusive. That word nearly made me choke. I'd spent years walking on eggshells around Emily's moods. Swallowed my pride. Let her win fights I didn't start. And now she'd flip the story? "I want custody," I said. "Full custody." "You better be ready to fight dirty," Sandra warned. "I'm past dirty," I said. "I'm already buried in the mud." On the 4th day, I went back to the house. Not to make peace. To gather evidence. I knocked this time. Kyle answered the door, shirtless again. A bandage on his jaw from the punch I gave him. I almost smiled. "Oh," he said, not even pretending to be sorry. "It's you." I ignored him, walked past him like he was furniture. Emily was sitting on the couch, texting. She looked up with zero surprise. "I'm here for my stuff," I said. "I put your clothes in the garage," she said coolly. "Didn't want to keep tripping over your old energy." Old energy. Like I was some forgotten mixtape she didn't want to throw away, but didn't want to hear anymore either. I grabbed my things, but I also grabbed more. The baby monitor from Ava's room. The family laptop. A folder of bills in my name. Every shred of proof that I had a life in that house before Kyle's greasy hands touched it. On the way out, Kyle leaned on the doorframe. "She doesn't talk about you much," he said. I didn't stop walking. Didn't respond. "She says you were predictable. Boring." That stopped me. Just for a second. Then I turned back and smiled. "Funny. She said the same about missionary. Guess that's why you've been trying so hard in my backyard." His smile dropped. "I hope the grill burns your steaks," I added. And then I walked off, not with shame, not with rage. With purpose. Because this wasn't about saving a marriage anymore. This was about saving my damn name. 2 days later, I was served papers. Not divorce papers, not yet. Restraining order. Emily claimed I aggressively invaded her space, physically threatened her boyfriend, and that she feared for her emotional safety. She used the word dangerous. That word, in print, punched harder than anything Kyle's beer gut could have handled. Sandra, my lawyer, called me while I was staring at the document in my car outside a grocery store. She didn't sound surprised. "She's flipping the script," she said. "Classic tactic. Get ahead of the narrative. She's trying to make me the monster." I muttered, gripping the steering wheel like it owed me loyalty. "She's not trying," Sandra replied. "She is. And if she controls the story, she'll control the court." I remembered the way Emily looked at me when I showed her the security footage. Not shocked, not sorry, annoyed. Like I was ruining her fantasy. A husband with proof is a threat to a woman who's already rewritten the truth in her head. "She's dangerous," I said aloud. To your daughter, too, Sandra agreed. She's bringing a man into the house after what, a few months? Less. That matters. Especially when it affects Ava. And that's when I knew my next move. Custody. I didn't just want it. I needed it. Ava didn't deserve to grow up thinking Kyle was her new dad. Or worse, that her real father walked away quietly, like a ghost. I met with a child psychologist Sandra recommended. He told me something that stuck in my ribs. Children mirror their environment. If her mother normalizes betrayal, lying, and instability, guess what becomes her baseline? That same evening, I picked Ava up from daycare. It was my scheduled visit. Emily was late, as always, and Ava came running into my arms like sunshine in a storm. "Daddy," she yelled, throwing her little backpack on the floor and hugging my neck tight. "Hey, kiddo," I said, holding her longer than usual. She smelled like crayons and yogurt and innocence. She didn't ask where Mom was. She didn't mention Kyle. But when I buckled her in, she said something small that set my blood on fire. "Uncle Kyle said he's my new daddy now." I didn't answer. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, I'd scream. Instead, I turned on her favorite song and let her sing the lyrics wrong all the way to Zach's place. That night, while she was sleeping on the couch beside me, arms flung over her stuffed rabbit like she'd conquered a kingdom, I texted Emily. "Me. If he ever calls himself her father again, we'll have a different kind of court hearing." "Emily, don't threaten me. You're the one who left." "Me. You're the one who let someone else move in before the bed was cold." "Emily, maybe if you'd made me feel wanted, I wouldn't have looked elsewhere." That was the sentence. Maybe if you'd made me feel wanted. Like I was responsible for her infidelity. Like my failure to be exciting enough gave her permission to turn our home into a circus. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because now I had screenshots, text logs, timestamps, and a lawyer who was building a timeline longer than Kyle's list of unpaid parking tickets. This wasn't about bitterness anymore. It was strategy. And the next time she looked at me across a courtroom, I wouldn't be the tired husband she pitied. I'd be the storm she never saw coming. The courthouse smelled like old wood, ink, and decisions you can't undo. I sat in the hallway outside family court, tie slightly crooked, jaw clenched so tight I could have cracked a tooth. My hands were steady, not because I wasn't nervous, but because I'd already burned through every emotion in the playbook. Across from me, Emily sat on her side of the bench, scrolling her phone like she was waiting for a dinner reservation. Her hair was curled. She wore a dress I bought her 2 birthdays ago. The irony made my stomach twist. Kyle was with her. He showed up in a button-down shirt that still couldn't hide the beer gut, trying to look like a responsible adult. He even brought a manila folder under his arm. No doubt empty, just for show. They looked like a couple walking into a home renovation pitch, not a custody battle. Sandra leaned in beside me. "They're smug." "That's good. Smug people underestimate." The judge, a gray-haired man with sad eyes and a slow voice, didn't rush anything. Emily's lawyer went first. She painted me as erratic, aggressive, unstable due to jealousy, she said. Even called me emotionally manipulative. I didn't flinch. Sandra stood, calm, sharp, and devastating. She laid out the footage, the screenshots, the timeline of betrayal. She didn't speak from rage. She used facts like scalpels. "Your Honor," Sandra said, "my client is not on trial for reacting to betrayal. He's here because he refused to abandon his daughter in a toxic home where men come and go like background noise." Emily shifted in her seat. Kyle stared at the floor. When it was my turn to speak, I stood and told the truth. Not the exaggerated version. Not a script. Just the quiet, brutal truth. My daughter thinks a man who made burgers in her backyard is her new dad. I won't punish her for that. She's a child. But I will protect her from growing up thinking love looks like betrayal. That a man's role is replaceable. That families can be swapped out like phone chargers. I paused, then looked directly at Emily. "You want to be happy? Fine. But not at the cost of our daughter's sense of stability." The judge didn't speak for a long while. When he finally did, his voice was quiet. "I'm not here to punish infidelity," he said. "But I am here to determine what's in the best interest of the child." He ruled in my favor. Primary custody, split holidays, and a formal recommendation for psychological evaluation of the household Ava would be spending nights in. Emily didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just sat there with her lips tight, her phone suddenly more interesting than the wreckage of her lies. Kyle muttered something under his breath as I passed them in the hallway. I didn't stop to hear it. I had my daughter's future in my hands. I didn't have time for losers clinging to the wreckage they helped create. Outside, the air was crisp. Zach was waiting by the car with 2 coffees and that raised eyebrow grin he gets when he wants to say, "I told you so," but doesn't need to. I took the coffee, leaned against the hood, and looked up at the sky. "It's not over," I said. He nodded. "Nope." But it wasn't bitterness in my voice. It was fire. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't chasing closure. I was building something better, brick by goddamn brick. The custody win felt good, but not like I imagined. There wasn't some triumphant soundtrack playing in the background. No slow-motion victory walk out of the courthouse. It was more like stepping out of a burning house and realizing you still smell like smoke. I had Ava with me for the first full week after the ruling. She was radiant, innocent, and completely unaware that 2 adults were playing chess with her heart in the center of the board. We went to the zoo. She rode the carousel 7 times in a row. We had pizza in the park and made a mess of chocolate ice cream on the couch Zach swore was off-limits. And every night, when she fell asleep in my arms, breathing slow and sweet, I thought about the lie she'd been living. Kyle, Uncle Kyle, the man who wanted to install a grill in my backyard, had been planting seeds in her head like he belonged. And Emily? She wasn't done. A week after the ruling, I got a message from an unknown number. Unknown. I know things about Emily. You should know too. At first, I thought it was spam. But curiosity, it's a nasty drug. I bit. Me. Who are you? Unknown. Let's just say, I've stood in your shoes. I was about to block it. Then came the bombshell. Unknown. Check her work trip to Denver last year. Ask who really booked the hotel. You'll see the same card Kyle uses at the gym. My stomach dropped. Denver. The conference, she said, was mandatory. The one where she came back with a fresh glow, suddenly recommitted to making things work between us. I didn't sleep that night. I dug through old emails, travel confirmations, bank statements. Sandra had advised I keep everything. I was grateful now. And there it was. Hotel invoice. Room service charges for 2. A gym payment from Kyle's account 3 days earlier. Same zip code. Same block. The affair didn't start after the fights. It started before she ever told me we were falling apart. She was already gone, emotionally undressing for someone else while still saying, "I love you" to my face. The next day, I confronted her. Not in rage. Not yelling. I waited until she dropped Ava off. She came to the door wearing sunglasses and pretending she had somewhere important to be. "I know about Denver," I said quietly. She froze. And then, she smirked. "You had to know," she said. "I mean, you weren't exactly giving me butterflies anymore." Butterflies. She destroyed a marriage, rewrote our daughter's memories, and all she had to say was butterflies? "You really believe I stopped trying?" I said, more to myself than her. "No," she shrugged. "You just got boring. You became the couch, the background noise, and I wanted music again." She turned to leave. No apology, no guilt. But before she stepped off my porch, I said it. "You know what's worse than betrayal?" She paused, thinking someone loved you, when really, they just didn't know how to say goodbye. She didn't respond. Didn't need to. Because that was the moment I realized she never planned to fix us. She was just waiting for a softer landing. Kyle was her mattress. But now, I'd pulled the floor out from under them both. And I wasn't done yet. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Signed. Sealed. Etched into legal paper like a gravestone. Jason Walker versus Emily Walker. Dissolved on grounds of irreconcilable differences. The official language, polite and hollow, couldn't begin to explain the firestorm it represented. We met one last time. Not in court. Not in a hallway. In the park, neutral ground, where Ava was playing on the swings, legs flying toward the sky, like she had no idea the world beneath her had cracked in half. Emily wore a coat I'd bought her 3 Christmases ago. Kyle wasn't with her. Maybe she left him. Maybe he left her. Maybe they were still together, but smart enough not to parade it anymore. "Thanks for showing up," I said, keeping my eyes on Ava. Emily lit a cigarette. She always used to pretend she hated the smell. Guess that was a lie, too. "You got what you wanted," she said, blowing smoke sideways. "No," I replied. "I got what I needed." There was a difference. A huge one. What I wanted was the family we built. The holidays, the lazy Sundays, the shared jokes whispered in bed. What I needed was the truth, even if it tore the roof off my life. "I never meant for it to get this bad," she said after a long silence. You mean you never meant for me to find out? She didn't deny it. I was lonely, she finally said. You were always working, always tired. I needed something that felt alive again. I was building a future, I shot back. You were just decorating the escape hatch. We watched Ava for a few minutes more. Then she said the last thing I ever expected her to say. I think you're a better dad than I ever gave you credit for. It wasn't an apology, but it was close enough. You never gave me credit for anything, I said. Just guilt, blame, and eventually, silence. She nodded slowly. Maybe I wasn't ready for the kind of love that didn't come with chaos. That landed. Because she was right. Emily fed off drama, the emotional highs and lows. She needed conflict to feel passion. I gave her stability. She mistook it for boredom. I hope he was worth it, I said, not out of bitterness, just curiosity. She stared at the ground, kicked a stone. He wasn't. And that was it. No tears. No hug. No movie-style closure. Just a dead match between two people who burned through each other and didn't even feel the heat until it was too late. Ava ran back toward us, her smile bright and untouched. Daddy, can we go get pancakes? I scooped her up in my arms, kissed her forehead, and nodded. Of course, kiddo. As we walked away, I turned back for just a second. Emily was still standing there, cigarette dying between her fingers, watching us like we were a memory. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not happiness. Not triumph. Just peace. Like I'd walked out of a burning building and finally found a patch of quiet ground. This wasn't the life I planned, but it was mine now. I had scars. I had stories. And I had Ava. She was the only truth left standing when the lies finally crumbled. So if you're reading this, if you've been lied to, betrayed, replaced, let me leave you with this. Let them go. Let the liars lie. Let the cowards run. Let the ungrateful destroy themselves. Because in the end, the truth always drags itself out of the shadows. And when it does, you'll still be standing. Maybe not whole, but real. And that's more than they'll ever be.